I'm Marcus E.T, author of Chimera Revolution, the Nue-Gaea Chronicles, and you're listening to So Booking Cool with Jewel B.
So fucking, so fucking, so fucking cool.
It's so motherfucking cool to listen to So Fucking Cool.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. Today's guest has been interested in writing since he was 8 years old. At 9 years old, his first narrative poem was published after he won first place in a writing contest. To date, he has written everything from articles to short stories, comic books, and is an aspiring self-taught screenwriter. He is the author of sci-fi and fantasy anthologies, including the new book, Chimera Revolution, the Nue-Gaea Chronicles. Here with us today in this episode is Marcus E.T. Stay tuned for our conversation only on So Booking Cool. So Marcus, you're married to friend to the show, children's book author, Ella's Greatest Adventures founder, Ashley Thompson. Do you think your mutual love for telling stories, has it played a part in your union, and does it still to this day?
I think that it does. It does kind of have some impact on our relationship because we both appreciate like good narratives, and usually when we watch movies together, we don't really have the same interest in the same genres. Because I typically like more hard, like action, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, whereas she likes more lighthearted things like Disney. And originally, that didn't really have as much. That didn't really have as much of an impact on us growing together in our relationship. But I think it does play a part in us continuing to appreciate the relationship. Just because we appreciate just spending time together and enjoying movies and things, and just getting different perspectives from each other.
Getting different perspectives from each other. So speaking of perspective, what were the type of perspectives that you have enjoyed reading in other people's works, and is it the same as today?
Yes, I think that I've always appreciated like science fiction and fantasy. Those have always been my favorite genres. I grew up on things like Batman, Ninja Turtles, and reading Animorphs. And I think that just the stories like that, stories like those really impacted me growing up. I remember seeing the Matrix movies, seeing Star Wars, watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and just looking at the themes and discussing like those shows and movies with like my father and my mother, and just kind of and also discussing it with my friends too. That just kind of gave me a deeper appreciation for those stories, and I think I really liked it not only just for the action and because it was kind of like, I guess, an escape from reality also growing up, but those always just stories with science fiction and fantasy elements just always interested me for what could be in the real world.
What were some of the memorable discussions that you had, with your family, for example, when you would watch things from the sci-fi genre?
I remember one of the first major ones was probably The Matrix, and like me and my father discussing the biblical themes from The Matrix, like how Neo represented Jesus, Cypher represented Judas, Morpheus was kind of like the God and everything. Trinity obviously was like the Trinity between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the architect, of course, represented God. Things like that really piqued my interest in like how certain characters you don't have to, or certain themes can play a part, and you can actually deliver a message through science fiction and fantasy, but without but I guess in a way that I guess appeals to people in a broader way, because I think the fan base that the Matrix developed probably really probably had, well, actually maybe it didn't have that much of an impact on people on their faith, but it was kind of an interesting way to deliver that same story.
And you mentioned also that it was a way for you to kind of escape the real world sometimes.
Mhm.
What were some of the things that you wanted to escape, Marcus?
Um, I don't know, honestly. It was nothing specifically. I can't say that I had a, a hard life or anything, but I just always enjoyed just imagining things and coming up with new stories. I always felt like, even as a child, I probably learned more from watching cartoons like Ninja Turtles and Batman than I probably did just in classes. And I think that also developed my interest in other areas as well, like seeing Batman solve mysteries and just being a master in chemistry and detective work kind of also gave me a stronger interest in learning things like martial arts, like taking more of an interest in sciences and things like that. So I think that also helped me excel in my classwork too, because I developed more of an interest from seeing those types of things in cartoons and TV shows and reading about them in the books that I read.
Wow. And speaking of interest, no pun intended, the way education is set up, do you think that it's interesting enough for kids, or subjects are not really taught in a way where kids are super interested? Just what are your thoughts on the education system when it comes to that?
I think it could be, yeah, it actually, excuse me. I think that probably could be one issue because I've seen it plenty of times where there are students. I've actually had some friends and family members who were actually very intelligent, but the issue for them, as far as when it came to school, the reason they didn't excel is because they didn't have an interest in the classes that they were in. And I think that kind of does play a part in it. If there was a way for teachers to make the classes more interesting, especially for specific students, and appeal to students special, like some students may have specific needs to actually get them interested in a particular subject. I think that that actually could play a part in helping develop or cultivate some certain skills in students that they may not be aware of. Me personally, I discovered my passion for writing when I was in third grade, and I know that if I didn't have teachers that actually encouraged me and allowed me to like read some of my short stories to my classmates during school hours, then I probably wouldn't have pursued a career in journalism or in public relations, and I probably wouldn't be writing books today.
Wow. Okay, Marcus. Yeah. So about being in the third grade, do you remember that exact moment when you became interested in writing? What did it for you?
I think it was those same things that I mentioned earlier. Just growing up watching the Ninja Turtles, reading Animorphs, Batman, Darkwing Duck, all those old cartoons that I grew up on. I think that those were the things that inspired me because I basically just wanted to write stories like what I'd already seen, but I wanted to make my own stories. I remember writing a story called Animania, where I basically had characters that were all animals, but they were all based on people who were in my class, including my teachers. And also created my own fan fiction called Catamorphs, where it was just me and a group of my friends, and we basically had like alien armor that could do different things, and then we could also transform into different cats like tigers and lions, and yeah, we all had our own individual powers also. Just things like that, just kind of got me started. But those are the types of stories that I wrote back in third grade.
Do you think in order for somebody to write sci-fi and or fantasy fiction that they have to keep up with the genre?
Yes, I do think that that would play a major part because, of course, they have that old maxim. Everyone says that if you don't make time to read, then you can't write. And yeah, basically, reading is a fundamental part of writing. But at the same time, I also understand some people may prefer not to read things specifically in the genre they write in because they feel like that may heavily influence them in their writing. So I know some authors who may prefer not to absorb any type of media, especially in the genre that they write in, because they're afraid that they may possibly steal an idea or something unintentionally, or they may it could influence them in the story they originally wanted to tell.
Have you ever felt that way, where you didn't want to be influenced?
Sometimes, honestly, in some of my larger works, such as including Chimera, I actually intentionally borrow from Greek mythology, from the Bible, from mythologies and legends from all over the world, and I also do like to base some of my characters on characters that I enjoy from like other franchises sometimes, but. Honestly, I don't think that I'm too heavily influenced, but I do like to partake in certain music and watch movies and things, especially in the genre that I'm writing, because it kind of prepares my mind before I go into the work.
Okay, yeah, and we're definitely going to get to Chimera, because when it comes to the sci-fi and the fantasy genres, it really, like, the whole world building aspect of it, how people label it, that seems so true. It seems like that's exactly what it is, that it is a world that you create, people, you and your peers, that you guys create for us, and it seems like there has to be a certain kind of language and terms and all of that. So that's why, I was just wondering if you're able to tell those stories by keeping up with the sci-fi genre, like following what is shown in the movies and in the shows.
Yeah.
Interesting. So tell us all about Chimera and the heart and soul of this story, Chimera Revolution.
So the Chimera Revolution, it's intended to be a larger series. I've actually been developing it since probably since I was about 13. I'm 32 now, just to go ahead and date myself. I've been working on it for a long time, but I didn't actually start writing anything on it until probably after college. But it's basically the whole world is basically a world where humans and what I call therians, which are anthropomorphic animals, and also shapeshifters like werewolves and werecats, who all live together, and it's basically about them trying to coexist. So they create this force of peacekeepers that are called chimeras, which are made units of police that are made up of humans and therians, and they're basically all trying to work together to preserve peace. And it's kind of like looking at the law of the jungle versus human law, or the laws of society. And it also kind of explores family, purpose, and also what it means to coexist and to find peace. Because of course, I mean, even in our own real world, people struggle with sometimes with identifying with people who are different from them, and that's kind of the core of what the whole series will be about. Of course, this is only the first book, but the core of the series is going to be just about trying to live with, I guess, with other beings that are fundamentally different from you. Because of course the humans, I guess, are the main ones that are living in fear of all these creatures, because they all have all the different therians have powers, whereas the humans, only a small number of them have special abilities. But I guess that most of the villains are people who have these specific ideals. So you may see people who have groups. People and individuals and groups within the series who you may identify as something similar to like the KKK, groups that seem like extremists, like terrorist groups that we see in our own society. There are even a few themes that I think I touch on in some of the stories where it's about police reform, like some of the technology that we're starting to see develop, and how the police are being militarized. I kind of touch on that, and I actually do have some experience working in the justice system. I used to work for the juvenile offenders office in North Carolina at one point, So I was always absorbing articles about the justice system at the time, and just seeing like I guess some of the injustices specifically against in the juvenile system, and yeah, I even have a story in the book that talks about reform of criminals, which I think some people may identify with something like A Clockwork Orange, where they're trying to, I guess, reprogram a criminal at one point. But the book itself is really just a full anthology. So they're all just little vignettes, just short stories. But I do plan on having a few novels in the series as well to kind of go deeper into the characters.
What have been some of the most memorable moments when writing this first anthology of the series?
I think some of the most memorable moments were probably when I was doing research for the different creatures, and I guess just some of the pieces of myself I started to recognize in some of the characters. I think it was just more exciting, and I just kind of got more. I just got way more interested in biology and mythology over time as I created a different story. Sometimes I just started a story with just an idea. I think the very first story I wrote was called "Of Feathers and Fearlessness," and it's about a boy that goes into the forest to obtain some medicine for his mother who's sick and possibly dying, and he has to confront these harpies, but he also encounters these frog creatures called Jabbas, who also help him. And there's kind of like some tension, but between him about who to trust. And I think that was kind of an impactful story for me. And there's also another story called Lamia's Tale that I wrote, and it's about this shark-like creature who's of the species that's kind of like the boogeyman of the seas. So none of the other creatures really want to interact with them or accept him, but he's basically trying to find something more in his life rather than just trying to survive. And I think that one was a good story because I think it kind of has a theme that a lot of people could relate to about like being exposed to more in the world and like changing your environment to change your mindset. And yeah, it was just, I think for me, just some of the things that I started to see as I wrote. Like I didn't write the stories with a plan sometimes. I just kind of had a general thought that I thought was cool, and I just kind of just started scribbling on paper, just on paper or just typing it out. And over time, it was just great to see how they developed and some of the ideas that I came up with along the way.
How do you know that you have developed chapters or a story in a book to its fullest potential?
I think for me, since I'm writing a lot of short stories, it usually just comes down to what seems to be the most satisfying conclusion without that kind of leaves people with something to think about, but at the same time concludes that that character arc. Kind of like if you have somebody who's like Little Red Riding Hood, for example. Of course, the main conflict with her is with the wolf, but her goal is to get to her grandmother's house. But the whole resolution in the end is what happens with her and the wolf and her grandmother. So I think that yeah, just having something that resolves every loose end kind of basically is probably the best way to know when a story has the right ending for it.
And when it comes to reading, when it comes to your own readers as well, do you want them to just read for pleasure or to also study, or both? Like, how do you feel about it? Either?
For me, it's more about the entertainment, but I do want to make sure that I'm saying something with every story that I write. I like to, like I said, with the Matrix, that was, I feel like there were a lot of obvious themes in it. And I always try to capture something similar to that in my own writing, where I'm not preaching to people, But at the same time, I want people to entertain, but also take something away from it if they want to look deeper at it.
And speaking of The Matrix, Marcus, are you interested in the new one that I think is coming out next year?
Not really. I feel like Hollywood is becoming oversaturated with remakes right now. But at the same time, I will I'm sure I will watch it anyway just to see what they do with it.
Okay, yeah. So what are your thoughts on, so you mentioned like the oversaturation of reboots. So what are your thoughts on the sci-fi and fantasy industry, in the book world or elsewhere?
Actually, excuse me. I don't think I haven't done as much reading as I used to. Most of what I partake in is usually videos and movies. But I do think that there is that there is a kind of an oversaturation with the reboots, especially in sci-fi fantasy, because of course you can also classify like superheroes. There's kind of like a subgenre of science fiction and fantasy on its own, and of course they're taking a lot of ideas that are translating into like the into movies and television are coming from books and novels now. I mean, I can appreciate that they are expanding, I guess, on some of those ideas and how they're also kind of inverting and revising some of them. But I don't know. I think that science fiction and fantasy is still kind of growing. I am reading a few. I'm sorry. I do have. I have started trying to find a few other series. I just recently got into. I think it's called Children of Blood and Bones, and I think
Oh yes.
I think they're about to turn that into a movie now too. I heard, and I think that is pretty good that they are kind of expanding those science fiction and fantasy stories into other genres so that more people have the chance to appreciate those stories. But at the same time, I do think that it probably would be better if they also try to seek out like more original work too.
And going back to original work with the Chimera Revolution, did I say the other part of the title correctly?
Yes, you
The
did.
Nue-Gaea?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I know I wrote it kind of weird, but I tried to break down phonetically how to pronounce it in the inside of the book also.
Oh, I think it's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really distinctive and it's interesting too. Yeah.
Yes, Anu is actually the name of I think it's either a Chinese or a Japanese chimerical creature. And of course, Gaia is another word for Earth, and it has a couple of different spellings. But yeah, I wanted to work that together.
So I have to ask, how have you been managing during the times of the pandemic and the social unrest and the election?
I've mostly tried to stay away from it. Even though I did at least check every once in a while on the results. But for me, I usually try to stay away from politics in general. I don't know. I just don't like the political atmosphere. And even though I work in state government as my day job. But as far as the election, I was following on social media what some of the people were saying, but not getting involved in conversations. And just checking the results, and just praying for the best.
Praying for the best, right?
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
Oh no.
Do you feel like during quarantine at all that you've made any self-discoveries?
I've actually tried to, but I don't really think I have made anything. I don't think I really have discovered anything like groundbreaking for myself. I've taken time to try to develop skills. I've tried to relearn Spanish. I've studied the stock market and started investing money in stocks. I also started to experimenting with fitness programs and also tried to relearn playing the keyboard. And I've also looked back on some of my old writings, a few of my old writings, just to consider like what I want to do, what my next steps will be as far as book publishing. But yeah, that's probably the most that I've done. I've tried to develop over time, but I don't think I've really had like a much of an aha moment in a while.
No, but you've been productive and taking on new skills and staying creative. That's great.
Yes.
How do you think people can stay creative, especially if they're going through writer's block, or they do have another occupation and stuff, they have other work and everything that also needs their time and their attention?
I think that carving out time for yourself is definitely important for everyone. I know it varies from person to person. I have plenty of friends that have kids or work multiple jobs, and I know that they say they don't have time for like even working out. But I think it's really important to try to find time for yourself and to I guess to recognize what your creative outlets are. For me, sometimes it's just it's something as simple as like putting on a playlist for music or watching some of my favorite movies. Because I mean, there are some movies or books even that you may reread or rewatch, and you may discover something different that might inspire you in a certain moment that you would probably never caught on to before. Sometimes even just taking a walk, exercising for me is another thing that inspires me, or just rambling to my wife also helps sometimes just to get ideas out of my head.
Right. So what is the feeling that you want people to get and take away when they read a book by Marcus E.T?
Usually, I feel like a lot of the themes in my stories usually come down to like, what is your purpose in life, or yeah, usually something related to family, like what do you consider family? I like to explore things that touch on that a lot, because I do write a lot of short stories, usually that's another way I like to get ideas out of my head. But yeah, for a lot of my writing, I just kind of want people to kind of reflect on, I guess, what do they really want to, I guess, usually it's what do they really want to do with their own life, or what else, what are the possibilities that they could see in their lives.
Wow. And do you feel like you are living and walking in your purpose?
I think I am starting to discover it somewhat. I've also started kind of helping other people with editing, including my wife, with editing their own books. So I'm hoping that that's part of what I'm meant to do. But I really feel like I've always felt like being a storyteller has always been part of my purpose as well.
And on that note, Marcus E.T, everyone. Marcus, it was such a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for coming on So Booking Cool. You're So Booking Cool. Oh yeah, of course. No problem. You and Ashley are awesome and would love to talk with you again in the future. How can people keep up with you, Marcus, and check out the awesome work that you are doing?
I have a blog, penandswordinc.weebly.com. I haven't been as active on it, but I definitely plan to pick it back up in sometime in the very near future. In addition to that, you can always check out my work. I've been published in several places on Amazon, so you could always check out my work there.
And I'm going to squeeze in a bonus question. What is your advice as a self-publisher? What is your advice for all the self-publishers out there?
As far as
it could be any type of advice?
Okay. Yeah. I'd say just keep at it. No matter what types of challenges you face. I would say that as a self-published author, just continue to do your own work and to take pride in whatever you do, despite whatever criticisms you get or any types of snags you may hit along the way. The best thing about being a self-published author is that you own your work, and yeah, no one can tell you anything different. You publish your work your own way, and you have full control. So yeah, just continue to take control, and yeah, just be the master and the author of your own way, your own goal.
Oh, I love that. I'm glad that I asked you that question, because your response to that, wow, love it.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And thank you to all the listeners. Until next time, so booking cool.